Hello, I'm by the names of David Irabizi, and I'm going to present to you about globalization and diseases. So first we're going to look at the meaning of globalization. What does globalization really mean? By definition, globalization is a process whereby people around the world, companies, different countries and systems interact and integrate through international travels, through international trade, and through international communication. This process of globalization impacts people in different ways, both positively and negatively. It impacts the environment, it impacts culture, political systems, it impacts economy around the world, it impacts the atmosphere, it impacts people's health. But in this presentation, we're going to put much emphasis on how globalization impacts people's health around the world. As I said, through that international trade, international travels, people interact easily. People are more likely to be in contact, and some of the people who are involved in that international trade, international travels, are infected by different diseases, including HIV, AIDS, diabetes, influenza, and many others. So that interaction increases the probability of disease spread. How globalization impacts people's health? From the research I made, according to Centron gives some examples on how globalization impacted people's health through the spread of diseases. In 2001, around the world, the travelers that have counted well around 100 million, and some of the people who are involved in those travels were impacted with HIV. They were HIV positive. So those travelers introduced HIV and the gonorrhea into North America from Asia. Another example is that in Denmark, some cases that were found of TB that has doubled in the past decade. It was not doubled because of the Denmark citizens who were in country, but it was doubled because of the immigrants, the people who immigrated to Denmark, introduced these cases of TB and make it to be doubled. This is another example. The third example, through international trade, people buy and sell different products, including drinks, including foods, and many other products. So the consumption of the white rice, which contained glycemic index, increased the risk of diabetes. So this was through that international trade where people are able to buy this white rice, which contains glycemic index, which causes diabetes. Another example is that consumption of some food that people get from that international trade. The consumption of some food that are rich in fats lead people to obesity and diabetes. So you can see that through international travels, through international trade, people are able to be exposed to some factors that can lead them to getting different infectious diseases. How communication contributed in disease spreading? From the research, I have found that many of internet users access unreliable information on how to cope up infectious diseases and outbreaks. So that causes people to handle the disease spreading in wrong manners that can lead them to further dangerous cases. And again, some of the myths that people have about infectious disease contribute to the spread of disease around the globe. There are people who get different information about infectious diseases, and instead of coping up with such problems in the right way, due to the wrong information they got from different media, mass media or social media, they handled situation in the wrong way. That increases the spread of diseases. So here I'm going to give an example. From the research, I have found that the unreliable information people would get from internet, from social media, from mass media, increased the spread of Ebola virus in 2014 in West Africa. So it is clear that communication also can contribute to the spread of diseases. Globalization changed methods needed to control diseases. So there are some methods that were put in place by different companies, by different organization programs and initiatives in order to cope up with diseases around the world, but still there are some other hindrances that prevented the methods put in place to work. The different methods include increase of pharmaceuticals and drugs. The pharmaceuticals and drugs are there always to help people to cope up with diseases, but then other people bring other things that are counterfeited. Another method, people strive to preserve the environment. Another method is access to safe water. So now we're going to look at how those methods were not achieved due to globalization. Due to globalization, even though there was this method of increasing pharmaceuticals and drugs to cope up with diseases, but people still, through international trade, they buy and sell counterfeited drugs which doesn't do anything to diseases identified. Through globalization, again, people continue to build and create industries that send this toxic smoke into atmospheres, and this is a hindrance to the method of preserving the environment in order to cope up with diseases. So through globalization, this continuation of building industries and sending into atmosphere this toxic smoke is a hindrance to preserve the environment. Lastly, through globalization, people move, and this where refugees come in. The refugees are not able to access the safe water as one of the methods to control diseases. So you can see that through globalization, there's different activities that became hindrance and challenges to accomplishing methods that were put in place to control different diseases. So thank you very much. This is what I had to present to you in this presentation.